Welcome to SaaS Unscripted, a podcast by Nobel Recruitment. I'm your host, Nick van Eten, and in this podcast we will take a look behind the scenes of the SaaS world. Join us on a growth journey through stories, challenges and achievements of the people driving this industry forward. Get ready for SaaS Unscripted. Welcome to another episode of SaaS Unscripted. We interview people with an interesting career within the SaaS industry, and today I will interview Florian. He is the founder and CEO of Your Campus, one of the hottest SaaS companies out there. So welcome, Florian. Can you introduce yourself and your company?
Nice to meet you, Nick. Nice to be here. And nice how paths can cross after many years. Just for the listeners, my name is Florian, founder and CEO of Your Campus. So more on a personal note, 33 years old, I live in Amsterdam, the passion for sports, love padel, and finding my way now in the world of boxing. On the company, Your Campus is a employee benefits and compensation platform for modern employers. And we basically allow employees to build their own benefits and compensation package on our platform. And we do that for many businesses around Europe. We're post Series A company in the scaling phase. And I'm happy to give you guys a bit more insights in how we got there.
I want to learn everything about that, Florian. Your Campus, you can describe it yourself better, but how did you come up with the idea?
Yeah, so I always worked for small and mid-sized companies. So companies with, let's say, between 50 and 200 employees, which is considered an SMB company. And my girlfriend, ex-girlfriend by now, is working for a large company, Tommy Hilfiger Calvin Klein. And she always came home with a bunch of interesting benefits, which she received as an employee. So anything from mobility plans like bikes, electrical cars. And we're talking about 5 years ago. So this was pretty innovative for that company, but also a lot of well-being initiatives, healthy food, and Tommy Hilfiger was one of the front runners when it came to how you treat your employees well. I was always working at smaller organizations where I never had access to an interesting package. Basically, it was always a base salary and maybe some equity. But beyond that, there was very little in terms of benefits you had access to. Whereas, larger organizations and smaller organizations sometimes are competing for the same talent. Mm-hmm. So there I thought, how can you make it accessible for these small and mid-sized organizations to organize a competitive benefit package, which is similar to what corporates are offering. So that's where, 5 years ago approximately, that idea started. Yeah. And so that's a bit of background.
So back then, that was 5 years ago that you came up with the idea, right? I remember the time I think you pitched it on the kitchen table. I was very excited by before day one, actually. But what happened since then? You had the idea. When did you know? How did you validate it? When did you start? Can you take me through that journey?
I think some people who have ideas are pretty protective around the idea they have, because they think they're maybe afraid that other people are copying it. I spoke a lot about it, like with basically people around me, like friends, colleagues, and this was a way that I could tell that people get enthusiastic about the whole concept. And maybe just provide some context. The concept is that we offer a benefits platform where everyone can choose and decide which package makes sense for them. So there's a lot of flexibility in the platform. And any person you speak with says that makes sense, right? That I can choose for what fits at this stage in my life in terms of time off, pension contributions, well-being, how I travel to work. So I spoke a lot about it with other people, and everyone was always enthusiastic about it, and I always had the dream to start my own company at one point. But I was still, after my time at Usabilla, started working at Hyber, which was a really cool company and also a very nice career opportunity. Also in terms of income security, so also had a good salary, bought a house, right? So at that time of my life, you think, well, starting your company is cool, but at the same time, I have all my security and my expenses and my house, which I have. So that was always tough. So it was always a side project for about 2 years. And when Hyber, didn't grow the way it was supposed to grow in terms of, they had high ambitions. In the end, had for different reasons some challenges. I saw an opportunity to explore it on a more serious level, and started figuring out like, hey, what do I have to do in order to start this company? And first thing was, how can I secure a little bit of income for the time I'm starting up my company? Because maybe recruitment is a business which you can start like overnight. Of course, you can start driving revenue, of course, the next month. But in software or in SaaS, that takes a bit more time because you have to build the product first. That's a bit of background on validation and some of the thoughts I had along the way.
Can you elaborate on that a little bit? Because you basically said I had 2 routes to choose from. It was either the consultancy route or continue your career at Hyber.
Mm-hmm.
And what specific skills and what specific network did you get out of that period?
So I think the network you build up already from since you're young, obviously, right?
Yeah.
But so if I look at the people working at your campus right now, these are people I met while working at all the companies I worked at, but also people I knew from back in the days. But if you look at the real network building, I think started at the company we worked at. So the founder of Ambitious People became actually my first customer at your campus. And the CEO of Usabilla was the first angel investor who committed to a ticket at your campus. And when I started working at Hyber, I started to work with Laurens Groenendijk, who was the founder of Just Eat and Treatwell, as well as Maarten Engelen and Erik Wink. And that team basically founded different companies already together. And the opportunity at Hyber allowed me to work closely to them, to learn about how you grow basically a business from relatively early on. So that experience has helped me tremendously, not only to get access to capital, but also just to gain the experience with finding product market fit. First, basically the whole initial process of founding a company.
Yeah. So basically, again, having the right people, in your journey was also a very good tip, basically.
Yeah, I was giving a presentation a couple of weeks ago around a similar topic, like some of the learnings basically from starting my own company. I think the main thing for anyone thinking about starting a new company is I think reputation is everything.
Yeah.
So each meeting you have, each employer you have, every colleague you have, just make sure that you always leave a good impression.
Yeah.
And try the best you can. Because in the end, you can always use at a later stage either people you can partner with, maybe you want to acquire them as a customer, maybe you want them to invest in your business. So keeping up a good reputation, I think, is something which has helped me a lot with finding capital, finding people, which are the key ingredients basically to start a business.
Yeah. Yeah, cool. And what was the moment when you went all in with your campus?
It started when Hyber had a more difficult time.
Mm-hmm.
This idea of your campus, it kept coming back, like every other month. So at one point I decided to spend my Saturdays basically as a side project to work together with with two friends on the project. And also started, so instead of just talking about it with random people, also starting to talk with compensation and benefits experts, HR decision makers. And again, the concept got validated a lot. So that moment I decided to, and I was still my last 6 months at Hyber, started to consult with with a coach. So I found someone via. Her name is Robin, and I did 4 coaching sessions with her to explore, hey, where are my drivers and where do I get energy from? And turned out that she said you have at least the right drivers to start your own business, and then on the financial side, my parents live in Utrecht. And they had a spare apartment, let's say, on top of, let's say, the highest floor of the house where my sister used to live. And I asked my mother, I said, can I live there for a couple of months? And then I will rent out my apartment in Amsterdam, which I bought. And then I moved to Utrecht back to reduce my expenses. So renting out my apartment for a couple of months in Amsterdam. It was a really good idea. In the end, I spent my money on a lot of other things, but no, it allowed me to spend time the first couple of months full time, which was fundraising in my case.
You took basically the chance to give in your notice and start your company from scratch, right? How did that first period go? Like you said. You were living with your parents again, renting out your apartment in Amsterdam, fundraising. Yeah, where do you start? How did you know where to start?
Yeah. So this, so I was working together with Maarten Engelen on this project, and with Floris van der Linden. And Maarten Engelen is also one of the founders of Treatwell, and he has this like great network of also investors, but also Laurens, who was the managing director and founder of Hyber. He started his own early stage investment fund, a Dutch founders fund. And it was actually a pretty informal process. So Maarten said, let's prepare a pitch deck and let's go to Dutch founders fund to explain the opportunity we see. So you have all these fancy graphs with hockey stick effects, but you have no clue, of course, what you're if that's realistic. But overall, the whole concept of employee benefits, which touches on a technology and a few interesting angles. So it's basically a marketplace model. It has a fintech component in the technology because there is actually wallets being created, money being spent on the marketplace. So it's kind of like the mix between fintech and HR / marketplaces, and this resonated really well with Laurens and the investment team from Dutch Founders Fund. And I actually didn't do a very broad fundraise there back then. So they basically said, we're willing to put down the first 250K if you, but we think you need at least 500 to start. So my assignment was basically to find another 250K elsewhere. And that's where my old employers, but also friends and family, just starting pitching. But what they always say, right, in the beginning, it's, I think Dutch Founders Fund saw an opportunity, of course, in the market and the business, but also because obviously, they knew me quite well. I think that helped a lot. And I think friends and family, in the end, they also invest in you initially.
Reputation again.
I think reputation. At least they know that I will do everything I can to make it a success. And that I had a personal ambition to make it successful.
Yeah. And just out of curiosity, you said you needed 500K to start your company. Why 500K? Where do you need 500K for?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think the 500K is, in the end, or if I look back and if I would do it again, like 500K is not enough. it's enough to start, but not enough to spend the second 6 months, or maybe in the end, you maybe want to raise 12 to 18 months in that first stage. And the first 500K I used to expand the co-founding team, because the experience I had was mostly commercially.
Yeah.
But if you start a company, what you also really need is a strong product profile. So I used the first 500K to basically to pay out our own, like, say, low management fee, so we can full-time focus on this thing. Rented a small office at the Herengracht with 6 desks. And basically used it to get the product out in the market, get the first paying customers, basically the typical pre-seed tasks you have to make sure it's could be a viable business.
Yeah, but you were planning to go big from the get-go then, if that was the route you took.
Well, I from the get-go, from the start, I believe this can become very big.
Yeah.
However, back then there wasn't something similar in the Dutch market, so there was not really a lot of references where you could look at to see, okay, this can be successful. In the UK market, in the French market, there was some activity around this whole concept of benefit platforms. And there you could tell that they were able to build a viable business. However, it's hard to in the market of compensation and benefits, it's hard to compare regions with each other, because in the UK, health insurance is a huge topic, whereas in France, that's lunch. Yeah. And in the Netherlands, it's a whole different industry, basically. Yeah. But if you go in bed with venture capital, indeed, you speak out indirectly your ambition that you want to make this a big business. Yeah.
And there's no way back. Hey, and can you give some insight in your typical week? How much hours do you work? With what kind of intensity, basically?
Yeah, it's intense. It is. It's very intense. So the start of the company was pretty what we call the honeymoon phase, because you have not too much to worry about, right? You have some capital, working together with, in my case, very almost friends, basically, because people I got to know really well over the years. So in the beginning, it was actually not that stressful and pretty nice, and you work a shitload of hours, but it's not really you don't think about that too much, because it's like all in our case, it went pretty well early on. We got pretty on paying customers, happy users. So pretty early on, we didn't had too much. Like sometimes you hear companies who struggle for 2 or 3 years to find their first paying customers. I think that's a whole different starting phase. For us, that went a bit smoother, I would say. Yeah. But I think in the end, if you start and you know it yourself, if you have your own business, you spend almost the whole day thinking about it, and every weekend as well. But I really enjoy the topic. I really like also you have these successes along the way, which give you fuel your new energy. Yeah. From being able to download the app to getting your first customer, getting your 50th, your 50th customer, your 100th customer, and at one point, it gives you every time a lot of energy. But I spend a lot of hours per week working.
And do you have an example of a stressful period or a stressful time?
Yeah, I think the most stressful time for me is probably around fundraising. Because we did this first 500K, which was expanded into a seed round of 2.7 million. And when we started the company, we launched the business in January 22. And this was still a time where it was all great for startups, right? Capital was relatively easy to get, but we launched the business, and then in May the news became more. There were more news articles regarding interest rates going up, companies which were overvalued. So And this was just the moment that we wanted to raise our seed round. So that was pretty stressful, because also the majority of the customers we still had were technology companies which had a hard time finding capital. So maybe you felt it as well in your business, that recruitment maybe was slowing down, and layoffs were happening. So we also saw slight decline in our existing customer base with number of employees using the platform. And this is of course not ideal when you start fundraising. And of course, investment funds were very reluctant to write new tickets.
Yeah.
So that was a very stressful period.
Yeah.
And just now we closed our Series A round. I'm not going to talk too much about that yet, because you will see the news soon.
Yeah.
And that again is just a stressful period, because you have to manage the fundraising process, which is a job on its own, a full-time job for months. And at the same time, throughout this fundraising process, they want to see results. So yeah, it's like that is probably the most intense thing I've done now a couple of times in my career.
Yeah. And how do you deal with it? So you feel you have more stress than in the not raising situation. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, I think two different things. I'm a guy who does things quite extreme, so I can do well, you know that. I've had times where I just really wanted just to go for a few drinks on a Friday night, which was probably not the best idea, but a nice way just to don't think about it for a little bit. But I wouldn't advise this to anyone, because you need to recover from it, and that's probably the stupidest thing you can do. But if I look back at the last couple of months, where it was also quite an intense couple of months, I just started drinking less, focusing a lot on my personal health. So for me, like last year, that was an Ironman, which I did, which was basically a good reason basically to become fit. Now in May, I'm gonna participate in a boxing match, and started to live quite healthy. So it's like the basics, right? Just don't drink a lot, sleep well, good nights. I'm not going. If I go out, try to going out for dinner, but I'm not going out after 11 o'clock, for example. It's really about, I think stress is really about energy management. So just making sure you have enough energy to deal with complex situations. So complex situations will always be there, but you need to be able to handle them. And I think that's only possible if you feel well and you have your health as a priority.
Great insights on that. Also nice goals besides your campus and nice health goals. I'm also curious to learn, because there will be a lot of aspiring entrepreneurs, maybe working in SaaS, maybe in SaaS sales even. What skills or what experience are you still using today in your work?
Well, I think you can be a founder in no matter what your background is, right? So my background is more the commercial side. As long as you make sure you surround yourself with some people who have the complementary, if you're a product, like a real product founder, make sure you have a strong commercial profile next to you. So I think it doesn't really, in terms of, I think anyone can start a business. In my case, since my background and my strength is in the commercial aspect, I also focus a lot on that in the business. So I don't, for example, on the financial side, on the customer success side, on the product side, I'm involved, but it's not my end responsibility. It's my end responsibility, but I'm not in the driving seat there. And this is, I think, very important. Also for your coming back to your energy, you do something which you like, you're actually good at, and you like to do on a day-to-day basis. Yeah. And if I look at the role I have today, it's really about driving overall culture and motivation and engagement in the company. So really, it's really a people aspect, and that's something I think, I'm good at, and also really like to do, to connect with people, finding good new people. So also the recruitment part is definitely an important aspect, which I'm still focusing on a lot. Yeah. And other than that, I'm focusing a lot on driving growth and doing really the hard work on the sales side and assisting the team there.
Yeah.
This way I can contribute myself to growing the business on those ends.
And what makes you so good in sales?
Well, I think every founder has to believe in their business and can tell a story well around the business, right? So I think it always helps if it's your own business to speak about it. But I think what makes me good in sales is that I actually enjoy it a lot. So I actually enjoy a lot, like reaching out, going to meetings, spending time on a deal, getting to know the customer well. I'm pretty competitive as well. So I think that overall I just really like sales. And I think everyone should at least have a couple of years of experience in sales when you start your own business. But in the end, a lot of things are sales, right? Fundraising is sales. Making sure that someone works, selling basically your company to work for. But I think just a genuine interest and a healthy competitiveness is something which helps for me a lot.
Yeah, nice. And what's your vision for your campus moving forward?
So we're in a very interesting stage right now. So the company basically exited the real startup stage. So we are really going to scale up from now on. We have spent a lot of time last years and months on identifying our growth markets and also the ideal customer profiles, basically for whom we're going to build the product and where we see most growth. And we're preparing everything on the background to service those markets well. Yeah. So there's a lot of interesting things happening on the back end. So finding the right, we have I think right now the right people in place. We have the capital, the product. Another interesting aspect we're working on is the brand. So next month there will be a big update on the branding side. And from there we're basically going full on in the execution mode. And the vision is really to build this all-in-one platform for compensation and benefits. It's too scattered today for HR and compensation teams with a lot of different providers, payrolling systems, and data living in a lot of different places. And it frustrates employers, but also employees a lot because they just don't have a good experience and something which resonates with them. So we're continuing to build on this all-in-one vision. Yeah. We're made the move to Germany. So we're going to invest a lot in Germany. And initially our goal for the coming 24 to 36 months is to have this market leading position in those two markets. Together, that's also the strongest economy from Europe, those two regions together. And from there, we see a good opportunity to take over Europe.
Nice. That sounds like big, bold plans, man. And what will be the biggest challenge to get there?
In the Netherlands, it's really an execution game for us today. Mm-hmm. So I think we have everything in place. So I think there's obviously there are like challenges along the road, but I think we have learned a lot in the past 2 years, a little bit more than 2 years that we're on the market, and we have implemented all those learnings into basically. For example, I think you had Martijn on the podcast recently, yep. So we did thorough interviews with our existing customers, but also prospects which decided not to work with us, like to do analysis on why do they convert and why don't they convert. Yeah. We pretty early on invested in a business BI team, basically a business intelligence team who does a lot of analysis on retention, acquisition, and all these, basically everything we track in the CRM systems. Mm-hmm. So I think in the Netherlands, it's about execution. Challenge will always be just to keep the momentum, making sure customers stay happy ultimately. Right now, we are very strong retention metrics, and we just need to make sure we keep up on those metrics. Germany, expanding to a new geography, I think you have done it yourself before, always comes with a lot of challenges. because you have to go through this whole learning curve again, right? The same thing we did in the Netherlands. You start picking a market and an ICP where you start building your product for, you start executing on. But let's see what Germany will bring in terms of learnings there. In the beginning, you see opportunities. Sometimes it's you need to be opportunistic in the beginning, but at one point you also need to dare to pick an industry where you want to grow, because you cannot optimize your product for 5 industries and 5 different customers at the same time. So I think the main challenge will be to keep the energy high and keep solving complex challenges, which we will face for sure along the road.
Yeah, cool. And you basically shared your vision on how to build that momentum or keep that momentum for the Dutch and the German market. You also mentioned that your focus is now commercial and building the team. How do you make sure that your team keeps momentum, that the culture is good, and that everyone gives that full energy that you just mentioned?
Yeah, that's a good and interesting question, because this is definitely a big topic for us. Because again, it always comes down to people in every aspect, with whom builds the product, who serves the customer, who acquires the customer. It's all in the end, the great team which is working in the company. So it starts really on the recruitment side. So on the recruitment side, we like to spend a little bit more time with people maybe than an average company does. Even though you can't really get to know someone in 3-4 conversations, at least we try to have multiple people in the organization to speak with someone, just to make sure there's a good cultural fit. So that is very important for us. So it starts in the selection process.
And how do you assess on culture? How do you?
Good question. We're still figuring out how to do that best, to be honest. But we have, first of all, we have defined 3 core values for us. So the core values which we find important is, first of all, we call it your company. So you treat the company like it's your own company. Second point is your growth, meaning that we have ambitious goals to grow, but we can only do that with people who have that same ambition to grow personally. Because if you look at how fast the company is growing, that means that responsibilities of people are also growing, meaning they need to develop themselves. So that is an important one. And the third one is that you enjoy and get the energy of, we define it as your ride, that you should enjoy the ride and get energy from it, contribute to that ride to other people. Some things are gut feeling in interview conversations. Some things we have defined a selection of questions which we ask to figure out, hey, how do people deal with responsibility and ownership? And it's we just hired our first in-house recruiter, so we're also professionalizing this and keeping that to bringing that to the next level.
So based on culture, you basically go hard on a match with your values, a match with the role, and a match with responsibilities and ownership. And how do you manage that? You said something about we value culture in the assessment. We have the performance reviews. How do you make sure that everyone manage that or implements that?
That's basically in the management team, we use a system, an HRIS system, which automates basically like, hey, new performance reviews are coming up, so everyone receives their it's a manager-employee review. And with the management team, we basically it's part of a cycle, from a quarterly cycle, and we check, we remind people it's coming up, but also it's also part of the regular salary review. So it's just an important thing that it happens. And honestly, it's not really an issue. People actually like to spend a bit of time on reviewing and setting new goals.
I think we can talk for hours, Florian. But I think what we learned in today's episode is about how to deal with stressful situations, how to manage fundraising process, where sales comes back in every aspect of your life and in your career, basically. A little bit of culture, a little bit of people. So I think it's better to call it a day, because otherwise we will talking tomorrow as well. Is there anything that you would? Are there any tips for the listeners that want to start a company that we haven't covered yet?
Well, for people who are thinking about starting a business, think about carefully what kind of business you want to build, and then decide on what you need in order to achieve that. So it feels maybe sometimes a bit weird that, hey, where do you want this to be in 3 to 5 years? But it's actually a very important question to think about. Since if you want to build, just to give a practical example, if you want to build a big business, you want ambitious investors on board as well, right? Like venture capital. But I also sometimes speak with people where if you ask them what kind of business do you want to build, then their driver is, I just like the freedom, and I like to have, I think I can make more money than just working somewhere else if I have my own business. And both things are very true. But those things you can also reach without maybe external capital.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that if you start your own business, just think well what your driver is and why you want to do it. Because there are so many businesses you can build where, look at yourself, for example, where you can make a good living with a 10 to 20 people company, which is in services and maybe not even technology.
Yeah.
So I think that's an important, in the end, if I look backwards, I'm really happy with the choices I've made, but I've been a bit lucky with the choices I've made. It was not really I didn't make these choices because I was so conscious about the impact of it.
Yeah.
But it's very important that the partners you work with, and if it's investors or your co-founders, that you speak a lot about it. Like, hey, where do we want this to be? Otherwise, you see, I think what can be very, very devastating for your business is that you have a conflict with your partners and either your co-founders. If you break up, that can be devastating. And we didn't have that, but I hear stories around me sometimes that, if that happens, then it's really devastating for your whole business.
Yeah, I can imagine. Great. And it is your first rodeo in that sense. So I think you're now projecting your learnings on your second rodeo then, I guess. No, just kidding.
Well, you need to be, even though every time I reach a new point, I think what's next, which I think is a good thing to have, right? But especially with your team, you should give them also really the impression, or not the impression, but also reflect and show them all the hard work they've done and all the achievements before you only set new goals on top of goals. Yeah, because I think that for maybe it's that founders always think, well, it's not enough, it's never enough. But for your team, it's important that you really show that you value all the hard work they've put into it. Because honestly, if I look where we are today, with all the customers, with the great product, a great growth rate, I think we're one of the faster growing companies right now in the Netherlands. You should be pretty happy already that this has been achieved. Yeah.
But you have to remind yourself.
Definitely. Yeah. No, it's because sometimes it feels like, well, you're at, for example, if you pass the 1 million ARR mark, you think like, well, 1 million is not a lot. You actually need 10, right? And then suddenly 1 million doesn't feel like a lot. Yeah. Whereas if I think about my 100K mark, well, 1 million seems like a lot, right? So you just need to sometimes be, be humble about that and be happy that where you are as well.
No, but that's great also to learn from that mindset, Florian. I loved learning so much about your journey. I thought I knew a lot, but there's a lot of new things that came up in this episode. And there are a lot of two little scoops that are going to be promoted about your campus. So stay tuned, everyone. Your campus is going to be the coolest companies out there. They're hiring apparently. So looking forward hearing the response to this.
Thanks, Nick. Thanks for the talk. My first podcast.
Thanks for joining us on SaaS Unscripted. To explore the latest career opportunities, visit our website nobelrecruitment.com. And don't forget to subscribe and leave your review on your favorite podcast app. Until next time on SaaS Unscripted.